I feel that from my experience in war, that we're at a point now, a precipice, that this must end diplomatically, that to end this militarily will not succeed. And it will only be bad for Israel as a nation state. It'll be bad for our allies. It'll be bad for the world. And it's time to realize that. As far as my background, I retired in March, 25 years of service. I did not have an intent to become a private contractor or an independent contractor or work in the industry. My intent was to be a retired, stay-at-home dad, husband, and make up for, 25 years of not being home, to focus on the family. And I got a call in May from UG Solutions, which is a subcontractor under the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, to provide armed security for the distribution of humanitarian aid in what was conveyed to me to be the humanitarian assistance mechanism to replace that of the United Nations. And that's what I thought going in, that this mechanism was built and designed to replace that of the United Nations mechanism. Politically, in terms of what that meant overall, was really outside of my scope of responsibility. I felt that I could help. I felt that feeding the population, a starving population, an oppressed population, was something that didn't really have political lines. It's not red, it's not blue, it's not left, it's not right, it's not up, it's not down. It's humanity. And I wanted to be a part of that. I quickly learned within the first days, and then confirmed through the weeks that I was there. Every day from the 24th of May, I arrived into Israel on the 19th of May, and by the 24th of May was in Gaza and spent every day in Gaza until the 13th of June when I resigned and departed. And what I would say is that the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, or excuse me, Foundation, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, not naively or ignorantly, but deliberately and with full complicity, is a tool and mechanism of this starvation, this using food as a weapon, using food as a means of leverage and power, using starvation as a means of negotiation. When I first learned of Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, I didn't know much about them. And for anybody that has been looking into them, about 3 days ago, they finally created a website. They did not have one. I've been calling them out on that for a while. They have one now, so there's a little bit more transparency, or at least the facade of transparency. But it is absolutely, without a doubt, that food, aid, water, displacement, punishment of the population is absolutely being used as a tool of leverage and negotiation. That it's gotten to a point to where it's so bad that now we think that we've risen to a level of okay that we're doing airdrops. Airdrops achieve nothing. They're a gesture. They're a platitude. They do not achieve anything in terms of bringing food into the enclave. Neither does the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And the previous speaker brought up such a great point that I think is just so important for everyone to understand, is that when there was continuous aid going into the enclave daily, it was important to keep track of the number of trucks, because that was the measure of performance in terms of how much aid we were bringing into the enclave on a sustained basis. Imagine, if you will, a grocery store that every Tuesday got its delivery to restock its shelves. And then for months that stopped. Well, you can't then go back to the same model of distribution to that grocery store to what it once was. You have a deficit to then fill. And every day that goes by, that deficit that increases is resulting in the death of civilians. And again, is there justification for the war based on the atrocities of what was done on October 7th and before, quite frankly? Absolutely. But to then punish a population in whole through the deprivation of food and water and human dignity, that is not how democracies and world powers and great nations such as Israel and the United States engage in the world. That is not how we do things. And some people might say, well, it's war, there are no rules. And to that I say, shame on you. To that I say, you are wrong, and I will disagree with you on that until the day that I die. Because for 25 years in the Army, in the United States Army, deployed in 4 different wars, 12 combat deployments, a Purple Heart and Valor Awards for fighting in war, there are rules. Those rules are what maintain our dignity and our humanity, not as just a world society, but as nations. And not just because it's something nice to do, because human dignity is on that is why we have the Geneva Conventions. And what I would like to remind everybody or notify everybody of, if you don't know already, is that within the structure of international humanitarian law, the protocols of the Geneva Convention, which were updated in 1977 with the second protocols of the fourth ratification, specifically outline that you cannot, you will not, you shall not, it is prohibited to use food, water, aid sites, things that civilians need, the population, to destroy, control, or manipulate those sites or those areas or those services for the purpose of waging war against the enemy. It is forbidden. We cannot do it. We should not do it. There's a reason why that exists. So from my experience, you know, there's plenty of times that I spoke out there in terms of the mechanics of the sites. And what I think is really more important to convey and what I think is really important to understand is that food, water, homes, places to live, churches, schools, hospitals, clinics are being destroyed and used as a tool of leverage. And it is not accidental. It is deliberate.